Hey guys, welcome back to Vertice Models. Today we'll be painting Blightlord Terminators. First things first, we're doing the white overspray, the airbrush, just using matte white. Next color is Goblin Green. This will be our first layer color over the white, and the white will just help make this color more vibrant. And we're just basing the whole model on it. So after that, we'll be using necrotic flesh, and we'll just be hitting, where we want the highlights to be. So the tip of his feet, center of his chest, the top of his head, the peak on each shoulder pad, at the top of his gauntlets, on his arms. We're just hitting these areas, and this will help our next color layered on top of that. So with that lighter yellowish color, I'm going to be using scaly hide next, and that on top of the necrotic flesh is a nice light green. Gives it kind of a pale green look. So we're just using scaly hide from Army Painter in our airbrush, and we're just hitting everywhere we hit with the necrotic flesh. It's a very subtle change, but you can see it once it's applied over the necrotic flesh. That's what he's looking like so far, and you can see the difference in that. Next, we'll be using a stippling effect with Kraken skin, and we just want to, get enough on there to where it's looking like a speckling effect. We want to make these guys look, gross, and so I'm using this Kraken skin to make it look like a chip effect on his armor. And we're just applying this all over the model, on all his armor pieces, just to break it up and make it look unique. And then we'll be doing the same thing on the back of this model. We're just stippling where we think it would look interesting at. So that's what he's looking like after that. The next will be stippling with a darker color. We're using Army Green from Army Painter. And this will, layered over the Kraken skin, this will give our model depth to its chipping effect, the way it looks.
Are you finished, Mr. Slade?
No, I'm just getting warmed up.
Doing the same thing to the back of the model. Bottom of his legs, his top of his gauntlets, each shoulder pad. And that's what he's looking like after the second stippling. And now we'll start basing with a brush using plate mail metal. And we're just basing his weapons, anything that I want silver. I think I'll just do his gun and his axe here. Or the handle of the axe and the head of the axe. And then that little bell up top will be gold. So that's what that's looking like. Oh yeah, and I did the two vents on the front of his chest. Now we're using weapon bronze, and we're just trimming out the model with weapon bronze. you know, around his neck there, on each shoulder pad, that bell on his weapon, back of each gauntlet. Next we'll be using tanned flesh, and with this color we're basing it on the cape of the model. That's what that's looking like. Now we're going to be using mummy robes, and we're going to be using it for two things: basing the bones and basing the guts on them. And same principle as when we were using the green over the white, or scaly hide over necrotic flesh. We're using the white over the guts, so when we start doing our gut color, warlock purple, it'll make the color more vibrant. So that's what he's looking like after that. Next we'll be using warlock purple, and we're basing all the guts on top of the mummy robes that we just applied. It acts as kind of like a under highlight. You know, if you're painting over black, you know, the color will be darker than painted over white. These colors are, some of them are already not as opaque as others, especially the lighter colors, and it could take many layers, but I use that to my advantage, you know, and do a undercoat of a lighter color like mummy robes, which isn't, it takes like one try to get it on the model, but you know, your lighter colors over a lighter color will be more vibrant. And that's what he's looking like after all the guts are painted. Each of the little joints on the beetle body he has some like tendrils hanging off his arm and off his gun. Next we'll be using shiny silver, and all we're doing here is using this to highlight our weapon bronze and to highlight our plate mail. We're just hitting the rivets, the edges, the top of the vents, you know, applying it where we think we would want there to be highlights on the trim.
area, 68 degrees today.
Yeah, hitting the rims on the shoulder pads, highlighting the top of the axe. Hitting the top of the bell, hitting the neck on the axe.
Winds southerly at about 15 with gusts of 25 miles an hour. Barometric pressure 30.0.
And with the shiny silver, it's a brighter metallic color, so it catches the edge really well on top of a metallic color.
For a little bit of a change tomorrow, and of course the possibility of some scattered showers. Today, of course, there's nothing showing up on the radar. However, the satellite photo was pretty interesting for the western half of the U.S. Rain showers and thunder showers along that frontal system, and that wide band of fairly heavy snow. Now, what will happen each time?
So after that, we'll be using mummy robes.
At 6 o'clock in the morning, and then you'll see the cloud pattern move until 2 o'clock.
And we'll be dry brushing his cape over the tan flesh.
Way off in the northwest. Now, however, it's moving.
This will just make it look worn, especially after I do the wash on the model. It'll dull it down, but it'll make it look, you know, worn in. Next we'll be using Darkstone, and we're just catching the edge of his horns we want to have it. We want to do a you know, a dark brown to white from the tips of the horns down, and we're just fading it in by dry brushing dark stone over the tips. I usually do the opposite and have them darker towards the bottom, lighter towards the top, but we're just experimenting, doing something different, and I like the way they look. Next, we're doing the grime wash, and this is just Vallejo streaking grime and mineral spirits mixed together, and we're applying this over the whole model. And it's like you know, 1-to-1 ratio, or you mix as much of it as you would like, but I like to do 1-to-1 to make it kind of a wash. And this will just it'll change our whole model the way it looks, and you can remove as much of it as you would like using just mineral spirits, dipping on a Q-tip and wiping away. We're just making sure we're getting everything on the model. So after that, we'll let it sit, and then once it starts drying a little bit, we'll take a Q-tip with some mineral spirits on the end, just soak it up, and then start wiping away. It'll be catching all the highlights on the model, and you'll start to see the color come back through. This will give our model a more weathered effect without losing, you know, any detail in our model. And I'm just trying to, you know, clean up the armor, wipe away, and then after he dries, you know, you can start to see, you know, your details. It gives it more depth. Now I'll be using matte white, and you know, same principle. I'm going to be using this as a under highlight, you know, for my glows. So I wanted to make it look like, you know, this is his hole or something. You know, he's got this smoke coming out of him. So I'm using the white as under highlight on his eyes, each of those little vents, and I'll be putting white also. I'll be edging it inside the bell on his axe. And we're just being slow and steady here, making sure we can be as accurate as possible. There's a little eye on his knee there, a little face. And we're getting the inside of those circles on his axe there. We're just ringing around it. We'll do the same thing to the other side. He's also got one of those bells on the top of his shoulder pad, and we'll do the same thing there. Now I'll be using Poisonous Cloud. I haven't used this color before, but after this I really like the way it makes it glow. And we're just airbrushing the areas that we went back and highlighted that white over. And it really helps this color, because this color is already pretty, you know, bright, a bright green. And that white just makes it glow. And that's pretty much it. He's done after that point. And I like the new colors that I was using, and I like the way it turned out. Thanks for watching. You know, if you liked the video, consider subscribing, and I'll see y'all next time. Thank you. Also, guys, if you're considering getting any Army Painter paint, I'll have a link in the description. Thank you again.